He smiles at you. He jokes. He even proudly calls himself a nice guy. But behind that smile, beneath those polite words, there's something brittle, something fragile, something that, under the slightest pressure, will shatter. And here's the part most people never see coming. The man who's weak on the inside can often be the most dangerous one in the room. See, Machiavelli wasn't afraid of tyrants. Not really. He was afraid of the weak man pretending to be strong. Because the moment real pressure hits, when life gets hard or power is challenged, that mask slips. And what's underneath is weakness exposed, like rot hiding beneath polished marble. If you can't spot that man, you'll be fooled by him. And worse, you might trust him. So today, we're diving into the brutal truths Machiavelli would tell you about how to recognize a weak man before you pay the price. 1. He worships comfort over conquest. Machiavelli once said, "It is better to act and repent than not to act and regret." And right there is the first sign you're dealing with a weak man. He doesn't dream of building empires. He dreams of never being uncomfortable. While a strong man sees discomfort as the path to mastery, the weak man sees it as a threat to be avoided at all costs. You'll see it in the way he tiptoes around hard conversations, how he avoids real challenges, how he makes excuses for every missed opportunity in his life. He might say things like, "Now's not the right time. I'm protecting my peace. I just want to keep things simple." But beneath that calm, reasonable facade is pure fear. Fear of taking risks, fear of failing, fear of being exposed as someone who can't handle life when it gets tough. Machiavelli believed that true leaders must be willing to walk through fire, to make brutal decisions, to endure short-term discomfort for long-term power. A prince, or any man, who seeks only to be loved, who floats through life unchallenged, who drifts peacefully from day to day. That man is no leader at all. He's a target for stronger men, for temptation, for life itself. The weak man craves luxury before he's even earned it. He's obsessed with avoiding pain instead of embracing purpose. You'll see it in the way he chases distractions, endless entertainment, constant parties or social media, substance dependence, shallow relationships. He does just enough to survive, but never enough to dominate. He doesn't train his body or sharpen his mind. He lets his environment shape him instead of shaping his environment. When life pushes him, he folds. And then he blames the world. "This isn't fair. I'm just unlucky. Other people have it easier." He blames circumstances rather than forging himself into something capable and dangerous. Now, contrast that with the Machiavellian ideal. A man who delays gratification. A man who quietly prepares in the shadows. A man who sacrifices comfort now so that he can rule later. That man is dangerous, even if he never raises his voice. He commands respect purely because he doesn't fear the grind. He welcomes it. But the man who worships comfort, he's fragile. The moment life gets hard, he breaks. The moment he's tested, he crumbles. He's like a castle made of sand. Impressive, maybe even beautiful, right until the first wave hits. Worse still, his weakness is contagious. If you surround yourself with men like this, here's what happens. Your own goals start to shrink. You start rationalizing laziness. You begin lowering your standards until you're living the same small, fearful life as he does. That's the Machiavellian truth. Comfort is a trap. Power is forged in adversity. The man who avoids challenge is unfit to lead, unfit to protect, unfit to rule. So how do you spot the weak man? Simple. Watch what he avoids. If he dodges the hard path, if he escapes into distractions, if he craves comfort more than victory, you're not looking at a man. You're looking at a liability. 2. He can't keep his emotions hidden. Machiavelli once said, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him." But there's another way to measure a man. Watch how he handles his own emotions. Because a weak man has no emotional discipline. He's ruled by how he feels in the moment. His moods, his fears, his impulses. They run his life more than reason, timing, or strategy ever do. He doesn't think. He reacts. This is the kind of man who will explode in anger during minor disagreements. collapse in his self-pity if he's criticized, broadcast his frustrations to anyone who'll listen, friends, strangers, social media. He'll tell you, I'm just being honest. I'm transparent about how I feel. But the truth? He's emotionally exposed, and that makes him strategically vulnerable. In Machiavellian terms, this man is easy to control. Why? Because he's predictable. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He telegraphs his moves to friends, enemies, and strangers alike. Machiavelli understood. Whoever can trigger you owns you. And the weak man, he's like a puppet, strings out in the open for everyone to pull. Machiavelli urged leaders to be like foxes and lions. The fox is cunning and silent. The lion is strong and fierce. Both demand restraint. The fox never shows his fear. The lion never shows his wounds. But the weak man, he roars when he's afraid. He cries for comfort. He spills secrets when he feels insecure. And once the world sees that emotional leash, they'll use it to drag him anywhere they want him to go. This lack of control poisons his relationships. It erodes respect. It invites manipulation. Partners won't trust him. Leaders won't promote him. Adversaries will toy with him for sport. He becomes easy to provoke, and even easier to sideline. The emotionally undisciplined man also has no patience. When a plan takes time, he panics. When he faces resistance, he complains. When he's forced to wait for power or success, he quits. Not because the goal is impossible, but because the weight of waiting bruises his ego. Strength isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about precision. Power isn't loud. It's measured. The strongest men feel deeply, but they act deliberately. They can take a blow and not flinch. They can hear a threat and remain silent. That calm under fire? It's terrifying, and it's the mark of a true Machiavellian mind. But the weak man, he reveals his hand constantly, not just once, but over and over again. So pay attention. How does he speak when he's angry? What does he say when he's nervous? How quickly does he crumble under pressure? If he leaks emotion like a punctured barrel leaks wine, you're not dealing with a stress. So let's recap what we've seen so far. The weak man worships comfort above conquest. He can't keep his emotions under control, broadcasting every fear, every frustration, every hidden insecurity for the world to see. But there's a third sign Machiavelli would have warned you about, and it might be the most dangerous one of all. 3. He lives for validation, not for victory. Here's a brutal truth Machiavelli understood centuries ago. Most men don't actually want power. They want the feeling of being admired. That's not the same thing, because genuine power is quiet, lonely, and full of heavy decisions. But admiration? It's addictive. It's sweet. And for a weak man, it's a drug. This is the man who can't go a day without praise. He needs applause, likes, compliments. He needs people telling him he's amazing. Not because he's doing meaningful work, but because he craves the high of external validation. You'll hear him say things like, "Nobody appreciates me. People don't see how hard I work. I'm the only one who really cares." It sounds humble, even noble, but it's pure desperation. He's trying to fill an inner emptiness with external approval. Machiavelli would look at that man and see right through him, because a man who lives for admiration can be manipulated with flattery, will betray allies for applause, will sacrifice principles to be liked. He has no anchor, no steady purpose beyond chasing other people's approval. And that makes him dangerous to trust, because when the stakes rise, and he's forced to choose between loyalty and praise, he'll pick praise every time. This is why Machiavelli warned, it is far safer to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. It's not about being cruel. It's about not needing people's affection so badly that you surrender your own power. A strong man seeks respect first. He wants to be valued for results, not simply for being likable. But the weak man? He's addicted to the applause. He spends money he doesn't have to look successful. He buys clothes, cars, gadgets, not because he truly enjoys them, but because he wants the world to think he's important. He posts endlessly on social media, crafting a carefully curated image. But behind the scenes, he's exhausted, anxious, and terrified someone might discover the truth, that he's not as powerful as he pretends to be. Validation becomes his prison, because the more he chases admiration, the more he gives away control of his own life. He becomes easy to predict and easy to manipulate. Tell him what he wants to hear, and he'll hand you the keys to his entire kingdom. And here's the sinister part Machiavelli would have emphasized. A man obsessed with validation is the perfect puppet, because all you have to do is feed his ego. Tell him he's a visionary. Tell him only he has the answers. Tell him people are envious of his brilliance. And soon, he'll do anything you ask. This is why weak men often appear charming at first. They're eager to please. They know how to say the right words. They smile, they flatter, they're agreeable. But it's not real strength, it's performance. Because the moment you stop feeding their ego, they crumble. Or worse, they turn vindictive. Because nothing enrages a validation addict more than someone refusing to clap for them. Machiavelli would call this the ultimate vulnerability, the desire to be loved above all else. Because the man who craves love will sacrifice his power to keep it. And Machiavelli knew that love from the crowd is fickle. Admiration disappears the second things get difficult. So if your sense of self-worth is built entirely on praise, you're standing on sand. So, how do you spot this kind of man? Look for the small tells. Does he brag constantly, even subtly? Does he panic when criticized? Does he change his opinions to fit in with whoever's in front of him? Does he seem exhausted after social interactions because he's performing nonstop? If the answer is yes, you're not looking at a leader. You're looking at a hostage, held captive by his own need to be admired. Machiavelli would say, the wise man does at once what the fool does finally. In other words, strong men seek truth. Weak men seek applause. And the man obsessed with applause will sell out anyone, including himself, to get it. So let's tie this together. You now know the 3 glaring signs of a weak man. He worships comfort over conquest. He can't control his emotions. He's addicted to validation instead of results. But here's why this matters so much. Because a weak man doesn't just fail alone. He drags everyone down with him. He poisons relationships. He creates chaos in groups, families, and businesses. He becomes a breeding ground for resentment and betrayal. Machiavelli believed that weakness invites attack. It draws predators, because the world is full of people looking for someone soft enough to exploit. And a weak man, who wears his insecurities on his sleeve, who avoids discomfort, who lives for flattery, is a shining beacon to every manipulator in the room. But here's the deeper warning. Weakness is contagious. If you spend enough time around these men, you start adopting their habits, rationalizing your own comfort-seeking, dulling your edge, shrinking your ambitions, until you wake up one day and realize you're no longer the predator. You become the prey. Machiavelli would tell you, fortune favors the bold, because boldness requires inner strength, and strength is the antidote to weakness. It doesn't mean you have to be ruthless. So far, we've dissected the anatomy of weakness. The man who worships comfort over conquest. The man who can't control his emotions. The man addicted to validation rather than results. But here's the thing. Machiavelli wasn't just about spotting weakness in others. He was obsessed with eradicating it from himself. Because if you don't first eliminate the weakness within, you'll keep attracting it in the world around you. So in this part, let's flip the script. Instead of just identifying weak men, let's talk about how to become the strong man Machiavelli would respect. Because strength isn't just about crushing enemies. It's about mastering yourself so deeply that the world bends around you. How to train yourself out of weakness. Let's start with the first pillar. Embrace discomfort deliberately. Machiavelli knew that fortune punishes those who live soft. He once wrote, "It is necessary for a prince, if he wants to maintain himself, to learn how not to be good, and to use this knowledge or not to use it according to necessity." That's not a call to evil. It's a call to resilience. Because the man who's never faced hardship will shatter the moment life stops being gentle. So the first way you train strength is by choosing discomfort on purpose. This could mean pushing yourself physically when you want to quit, having brutally honest conversations instead of avoiding them, taking calculated risks even when they terrify you, practicing discipline in small things like finishing what you start. Every act of voluntary hardship is a deposit into your bank of inner power. It builds grit, it builds confidence, and it proves to yourself that you're not as fragile as your comfort-loving mind tries to convince you. But let's be real, most people won't do it, because choosing discomfort is lonely. People will call you obsessive, or say, "Why can't you just relax and enjoy life?" But Machiavelli would tell you, men in general judge more from appearances than from reality. All men have eyes, but few have the gift of penetration. The world only respects results. The man who refuses comfort becomes the man who commands reality itself. Now let's tackle the second pillar, emotional containment. Weak men vomit their feelings everywhere. Strong men contain them until the time is right. Containment doesn't mean you suppress or ignore emotions. It means you process them privately and act with deliberation publicly. So how do you train it? Whenever you feel yourself boiling over, breathe, count silently. Excuse yourself from the situation if you have to. Write down your anger instead of speaking it, because even a few seconds of delay can save you from doing something weak. And here's the critical part. Every time you choose silence instead of emotional outburst, you're telling your brain, "I'm in control here, not my feelings." That's how men become unshakable. Machiavelli understood this, because once people know how to trigger you, they own you. A man who is unpredictable, calm, and unreadable, he's terrifying. Not because he's violent, but because nobody knows what he's thinking. And humans fear the unknown more than they fear open aggression. Third pillar, detach from validation. This one is brutal, because we're all wired to crave approval. But a man who's addicted to praise is always performing. He's living in a prison of other people's opinions. And here's the paradox. The more you need admiration, the less you'll get real respect. So how do you kill the addiction to validation? One way, deliberately choose silence when you'd normally seek praise. Finish a project and don't announce it publicly. Do something excellent without posting about it. Let someone else get credit in a meeting and simply observe. Each time you do that, you're starving the part of you that needs applause. And over time, you become immune to the highs and lows of public opinion. That's where true freedom lives. Machiavelli would say, "He who becomes master of a city accustomed to freedom and does not destroy it, may expect to be destroyed by it." In modern terms, if you let your need for approval remain alive, it will eventually destroy your power. So train yourself to be silent, to let your actions speak louder than your words. But let's be clear, being strong doesn't mean being cold or heartless or inhuman. Machiavelli wasn't a monster. He believed a great ruler must appear merciful, faithful, humane, honest, and religious, even if he's prepared to act differently if survival requires it. It's about balance. We come a long way, from spotting the weaknesses of men who worship comfort, to understanding how emotional chaos exposes a man's soft underbelly, to recognizing the deadly addiction to validation. And we've talked about forging yourself into someone who can't be moved by gossip, chaos, or fear. But now let's bring all of this together into something bigger. Because Machiavelli's wisdom isn't meant to live only in dusty books or political treatises. It's meant for you right now, in your career, in your relationships, in how you walk through the world. How to be silent and still powerful. Here's the first modern takeaway. You don't need to announce who you are. We live in an age of oversharing. People post everything. The business plan they just launched. Every new relationship milestone. The latest inspirational quote they're pretending to live by. But Machiavelli would cringe at all this noise. Because real power is silent. Think of a wolf walking through a crowded room. It doesn't bark. It doesn't snarl. It just walks. Calm. Silent. But every creature in the room senses the presence of something dangerous. That's what silent power feels like. And it's built through consistency, discipline, mystery. So here's a rule Machiavelli would give you for the modern world. Move quietly. Let results announce you. Don't tell people you're planning something big. Build it. Don't broadcast your relationships. Let people wonder who you're connected to. Don't tell enemies how you'll respond. Let them worry about it in silence. And the more silent you remain, the more unpredictable and therefore powerful you become. Because remember, power is about uncertainty. People can't attack what they can't predict. The art of strategic boundaries. Another piece of Machiavellian wisdom for the modern world is about boundaries. Weak men have no boundaries. They spill secrets to anyone who pretends to listen. They can't say no without apologizing 10 times. They're afraid of being disliked. But strong men? They set boundaries calmly, clearly, and without explanation. Picture this. Someone comes at you with gossip. Instead of engaging, you simply say, "That's not something I discuss." And then silence. No further explanation. No apology. That silence is powerful because it shows you're untouchable. Or imagine you're invited into a shady business deal. Instead of arguing, you just say, "I'm not interested," and you walk away. No anger, no moral sermon, just decisive distance. Machiavelli would call that a power move. Weak men try to argue their boundaries. Strong men simply state them and move on. Patience is the ultimate weapon. Another Machiavellian gem. He who wishes to be obeyed must know how to command. But commanding doesn't mean shouting orders. Often, it means waiting, because time reveals everything. Think about the weak man who overreacts the moment he feels threatened. He panics. He launches into a tirade. He makes enemies unnecessarily. But the strong man